Captain Ji-won Park was drinking her morning coffee when the alarm started screaming. She set down her cup and walked quickly to the bridge of the Earth Defense Station. The coffee was terrible anyway. "What do we have?" she asked her communications. "Officer, unknown ships approaching the outer system, Captain," said Lieutenant Dong-hae Kim. "They're big, really big." Ji-won looked at the main screen. 3 massive ships were moving toward Earth at a steady pace. They were unlike anything she had ever seen. The ships looked like floating cities made of dark metal and bright lights. "How big?" she asked. "Each one is about 5 kilometers long," said Dong-hae. "They're sending a message on all frequencies." "Put it through." The screen flickered and showed a tall, thin creature with purple skin and 4 arms. It wore elaborate robes covered in golden symbols. Behind it, Ji-won could see more aliens moving around what looked like a throne room. "Greetings, primitive inhabitants of the 3rd planet," the alien said in perfect English. "I am Ambassador Kelthar of the mighty Velthani Empire. We have traveled across the stars to bring you wonderful news." Ji-won raised an eyebrow. She looked at her second-in-command, Commander Tae-hyung-yoon, who was trying not to smile. "We offer your species the great honor of joining our Galactic Confederation," Kelthar continued. "For too long, you have lived in darkness and ignorance on this small world. But fear not. The Velthani Empire will protect you from the terrible dangers that lurk in the void between stars." "Protect us?" Ji-won asked, speaking into her microphone. "From what exactly?" Kelthar seemed surprised that she had spoken. "Ah, you have developed basic communication technology. How quaint, child of Earth. There are horrors in this galaxy that would destroy your fragile civilization in moments. Savage swarms that devour entire worlds. Ancient machines that turn planets to dust, cults of madness that corrupt the minds of the innocent." Commander Yoon leaned over to Ji-won. "Should I contact Admiral Kim?" he whispered. Ji-won nodded. "Tell him we have visitors who think we need babysitters." On the screen, Kelthar was still talking. "But do not despair. The Velthani Empire has protected thousands of species across the galaxy. We have the strongest fleets, the most advanced weapons, and the wisdom of 10,000 years of civilization. Under our protection, your species will be safe and prosperous." "That's very kind of you," Ji-won said. "What do you want in return?" "Such a direct question from a primitive." "How refreshing," Kelthar laughed. "We ask for little, perhaps 30% of your world's resources, some of your more interesting individuals to serve our empire, complete obedience to our laws and customs. Small prices to pay for safety, don't you think?" The bridge was completely silent. Several officers were staring at the screen with their mouths open. Others were clearly trying not to laugh. 30%? asked Lieutenant So-young-han from the weapons station. "Of everything," Kelthar said proudly. "Food, minerals, energy, technology. We are very fair rulers. Many species give us much more." Admiral Dong-hyun Kim's voice came through Ji-won's earpiece. "Captain, I'm watching this from headquarters. Please tell me this alien just asked for 1/3 of our planet." "That's exactly what he asked for, sir," Ji-won replied quietly. "Interesting," the Admiral said. "Very interesting indeed." Kelthar was still speaking. "I can see that you are overwhelmed by our generous offer. This is normal for primitive species, but you should know that this offer will not last forever. The galaxy is a dangerous place, and we cannot protect those who refuse our help." "I see," Ji-won said. "And what happens to species that don't accept your protection?" "Sadly, they usually do not survive long," Kelthar said with fake sadness. "The Korthak swarms find them." or the destroyer cults corrupt them, or the void hunters drain their worlds of life. It is a terrible fate, but we cannot force our help on those who do not want it. Commander Yoon was now making notes on his tablet. He showed Ji-won what he had written. Korthak swarms, destroyer cults, void hunters. Should we be worried? Ji-won shrugged. She had never heard of any of these threats, and Earth's deep space sensors were very good. If there were dangerous aliens out there, they should have detected them by now. Ambassador Kelthar, she said, this is a very big decision for our species. We would need time to discuss it with our leaders. Of course. We are not unreasonable, Kelthar said. We will give you 7 of your local days to consider our offer. After that, we must move on to protect other worlds. There are so many primitive species that need our help. 7 days should be enough, Ji-won said. Excellent. We will wait at the edge of your system. Do not attempt to approach our ships. They are equipped with weapons that could vaporize your entire planet if they detected a threat. The communication ended. The bridge was quiet for a moment. Sir, said Lieutenant Kim, are those ships really as dangerous as he claims? Ji-won looked at the sensor readings. Hyun-woo, what do you think? Dr. Hyun-woo Lee, the station's science officer, was studying his screens carefully. Their ships are big, but the technology looks surprisingly old. Those energy signatures are similar to what we were using 50 years ago. 50 years ago? Commander Yoon asked. Maybe more, Dr. Lee said. Their weapons appear to be basic plasma cannons. Their shields are simple energy barriers. Honestly, Captain, our defense satellites are probably more advanced than their flagship. Admiral... Kim's voice came through the speakers again. Captain Park, please report to Earth immediately. Bring Commander Yoon and Dr. Lee. We need to have a very serious discussion about our new friends. Yes, sir, Ji-won said. She turned to her crew. Lieutenant Kim, you have the bridge. Keep monitoring those ships. If they move any closer to Earth, let us know immediately. As Ji-won walked toward the shuttle bay, she thought about the aliens' offer. 30% of everything, complete obedience, protection from threats that might not even exist. Commander Yoon caught up with her in the corridor. Captain, what do you think? Are we really in danger from these galactic threats? Ji-won stopped walking and looked at him. Tae-hyung, in your opinion, what's the biggest threat to Earth right now? Those 3 alien ships that just demanded 1/3 of our planet? Exactly, Ji-won said. Come on, let's go see what the Admiral thinks about our new protectors. The shuttle ride to Earth was quiet. Through the window, Ji-won could see the 3 alien ships hanging in space like dark clouds. They were impressive, she had to admit, but impressive didn't always mean dangerous. She had a feeling that Ambassador Kelthar was about to learn something very important about the species he thought he was protecting. Ambassador Kelthar stepped out of his shuttle and looked around with obvious disappointment. He had expected to land in some primitive village with mud huts and scared natives. Instead, he found himself on a gleaming platform surrounded by tall buildings that reached toward the sky. This is unexpected, he said to his aide, a smaller alien named Vex. The primitives seem more advanced than our initial scan suggested, Vex replied nervously. President Minji Choi walked forward with a warm smile. She was flanked by a dozen officials, all dressed in simple but elegant clothing. Welcome to Earth, Ambassador Kelthar. I am President Choi of the United Earth Government. Kelthar straightened his robes and tried to look more impressive. President, you have achieved basic governmental structures. How progressive. We try our best, President Choi said politely. Please, follow me. We have prepared a meeting room where we can discuss your generous offer in detail. As they walked through the building, Kelthar noticed more things that bothered him. The walls seemed to be made of some kind of smart material that shifted colors as they passed. The floors felt solid, but somehow absorbed sound perfectly. Everything was clean and efficient in a way that suggested very advanced technology. Tell me, President, Kelthar said as they entered an elevator. How long has your species had access to anti-gravity transportation? Oh, we've been using magnetic levitation for about 60 years now, President Choi said casually. Though we've recently developed some more interesting propulsion methods. The elevator moved so smoothly that Kelthar barely felt it. When the Maked doors opened, they stepped into a large conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows that showed a view of the city below. Flying vehicles moved in perfect patterns between the buildings. Please, have a seat, President Choi said, gesturing to a chair that seemed to adjust itself to fit Kelthar's unusual body shape. Around the table sat several humans. President Choi introduced them one by one. This is Dr. Hyunwoo Lee, our chief xenobiologist, Admiral Donghyun Kim, head of our defense forces, Dr. So-Young Han, our military strategist, and General Kyungmin Jang, who oversees our planetary security. Kelthar noticed that none of them seemed impressed or frightened by his presence. In fact, Dr. Lee was taking notes on some kind of advanced tablet while watching him with obvious scientific interest. Now then, President Choi said, you mentioned that you wish to offer us protection. Could you tell us more about these threats we face? Kelthar activated a holographic projector from his robes. The air above the table filled with images of space battles and destroyed planets. Behold the horrors that lurk in the darkness between stars. The first image showed a swarm of dark ships attacking a planet. The Korthak swarms travel the galaxy in vast fleets, devouring everything in their path. They show no mercy to any species they encounter. Admiral Kim leaned forward. How large are these fleets typically? Thousands of ships, Kelthar said, dramatically. Each one filled with bloodthirsty warriors who live only to destroy and consume. Dr. Han made a note on her tablet. What kind of weapons do they use? Primitive but effective, Kelthar said. Kinetic projectiles, basic energy weapons, boarding parties with crude weapons, they make up for their simple technology with overwhelming numbers. The next image showed robed figures performing some kind of ritual. The destroyer cults are even more dangerous. They corrupt the minds of peaceful species, turning them into fanatic warriors who serve ancient machine gods. Machine gods? Dr. Lee asked with obvious interest. Artificial intelligences left behind by a dead civilization, Kelthar explained. The cults believe these machines will grant them power if they destroy enough organic life. General Jang spoke for the first time. How do they corrupt minds? Some kind of technology? Propaganda mostly, Kelthar said. They promise power and immortality to those who join them. Many weak-minded species fall for their lies. The final image showed massive, black ships shaped like daggers. And these are the Void Hunters, the most terrible threat of all. They drain the life energy from entire planets, leaving nothing but dead rocks behind. President Choi studied the image carefully. How exactly do they drain life energy? With advanced bioabsorption technology, Kelthar said. Once they target a world, nothing can save it. The Velthani Empire has fought them for centuries, but even we can only drive them away. not destroy them. Dr. Lee looked up from his notes. These void hunters, how often do they attack inhabited worlds? Perhaps once every few years, Kelthar said. But when they strike, entire civilizations vanish overnight. The room was quiet for a moment. Then President Choi spoke. And you're saying that membership in your empire would protect us from all these threats? Absolutely, Kelthar said, proudly. The Velthani fleet is the most powerful force in the galaxy. We have defeated the Korthak swarms in dozens of battles. We have driven off the destroyer cults from hundreds of worlds. We have even forced the Void Hunters to retreat when they threatened our territory. That's very impressive, Admiral Kim said. Could you tell us more about your fleet, ship numbers, weapon types, defensive capabilities? Kelthar activated another hologram showing Velthani warships. We command over 10,000 vessels across our territory. Each ship is armed with plasma cannons, missile launchers, and particle beam weapons. Our shields can withstand tremendous punishment. Dr. Han studied the ship designs with interest. What's your typical engagement range? How do you coordinate fleet movements? We fight at optimal ranges of 50 to 100 kilometers, Kelthar said. Our commanders use quantum communication to coordinate attacks across multiple star systems. General Jiang made several notes. And your ground forces? Each ship carries a regiment of warriors equipped with energy weapons and powered armor, Kelthar said. We can land overwhelming force on any planet within hours. President Choi nodded thoughtfully. This is all very interesting. And in exchange for this protection, you would require only 30% of your planetary resources, Kelthar said, plus access to any unique technologies your species has developed, and of course your complete cooperation with Velthani law and customs. 30%, Dr. Han repeated. That includes food production, mineral extraction, energy generation, everything, Kelthar confirmed. But consider what you receive in return. Complete safety from the galaxy's most dangerous threats, access to our trade networks, the wisdom of our ancient civilization. Dr. Lee looked up again. This ancient civilization? How old is Velthani society? We have ruled the stars for over 10,000 of your years, Kelthar said proudly. We have seen the rise and fall of countless species. We know the secrets of survival in this hostile galaxy. President Choi stood up. Ambassador Kelthar, this is indeed a generous offer. However, such an important decision requires careful consideration. Would it be possible for us to verify some of this information? Perhaps observe one of these threats for ourselves? Kelthar looked shocked. Observe? You would risk your lives to see these monsters? We're a curious species, President Choi said with a smile. We like to understand what we're dealing with. That would be extremely dangerous, Kelthar warned. Your primitive ships would be destroyed instantly if you encountered any of these threats. Admiral Kim spoke up. What if we sent just a small, fast scout ship, something that could observe from a safe distance? Kelthar thought about this. Perhaps, if you stayed very far away and did exactly as my escorts instructed. That would be perfect, President Choi said. We'll have an answer for you within the week. As the meeting ended and Kelthar was escorted back to his shuttle, he felt uneasy. These humans were asking very specific questions about things that primitive species shouldn't understand, and their technology was far more advanced than his initial scans had suggested. But surely they were still just another weak species that needed Velthani protection. After all, They hadn't even left their own solar system yet. What could they possibly know about the real dangers of the galaxy? 3 days after the meeting with Ambassador Kelthar, Commander Tae-Hyung-Yoon stood in the hangar bay looking at his ship. The HSS Silent Running was Earth's most advanced reconnaissance vessel, designed to be completely invisible to almost any sensor system. "You sure about this, Commander?" asked Chief Engineer Jinsu Oh as he finished the final checks. "These aliens seem pretty confident about how dangerous the galaxy is." "That's exactly why we need to see for ourselves," Tae-Hyung said. "President, Choi wants facts, not scary stories." Dr. So-Young-han walked up carrying a datapad filled with technical specifications. "I've been analyzing the Velthani ship designs from yesterday's meeting. Jinsu, take a look at this." The engineer studied the data. "Their plasma cannons are using magnetic confinement technology we abandoned 30 years ago. And those shields, they're basically just reinforced energy barriers." "What does that mean?" asked Lieutenant Naeon Shin, the ship's pilot. "It means their advanced weapons are less powerful than our mining equipment," Dr. Han said. "And their shields wouldn't stop a modern Earth torpedo," Tae-Hyung frowned. "Are you saying they're not as strong as they claim?" "I'm saying they're using technology that we would consider antique," Dr. Han replied. "The question is, if they're this primitive, how have they supposedly defeated all these galactic threats?" "Only one way to find out," Tae-Hyung said. "Everyone aboard. Let's go. Meet some monsters." The Silent Running launched quietly from Earth's hidden military shipyard. Within minutes, they had reached the edge of the solar system where the Velthani ships waited. Ambassador Kelthar's escort, a smaller vessel called the Righteous Fury, was already moving toward the jump point. "Primitive Earth vessel," came Kelthar's voice over the radio. "You will follow exactly in our wake. Do not deviate from our course. Do not scan anything without permission, and if I tell you to run, you will run immediately." "Understood," Tae-Hyung replied. "We'll stay right behind you." As soon as they jumped to hyperspace, Dr. Han began quietly scanning the Velthani ship ahead of them. "Their hyperdrive is incredibly inefficient," she whispered. "We could make this same jump in half the time using a third of the energy." "Keep scanning," Tae-Hyung said. "But stay passive. We don't want them to know what we're capable of yet." The journey took 6 hours. When they dropped out of hyperspace, Tae-Hyung saw a system with 5 planets orbiting a yellow star. It looked peaceful enough. "There," Kelthar announced over the radio. "The Korthak swarms have been reported in this system. We will observe from a safe distance." Lieutenant Shin checked her sensors. "I'm detecting multiple ships near the 3rd planet. Maybe 30 or 40 vessels." "That's them," Kelthar said with obvious fear in his voice. "The bloodthirsty Korthak swarms. Look upon them and despair, humans. This is what awaits species that refuse Velthani protection." Tae-Hyung studied the ships on his screen. They were definitely not what he had expected. "Those ships, they look like cargo vessels and passenger transports." "What?" Dr. Han said, running her own scans. "Commander, these aren't warships. Half of them don't even have weapons, and the ones that do are only carrying defensive systems." Engineer O pointed at another reading. "Sir, I'm detecting massive energy signatures from the planet's surface. But they're not weapons signatures. They're construction projects? Mining operations?" "Kelthar," Tae-Hyung said carefully. "What exactly are the Korthak doing down there?" "Devouring the planet's resources," Kelthar replied. "They consume everything in their path, leaving nothing but bare rock behind." Dr. Han was studying the planet with Earth's advanced sensors. "Commander, they're not devouring anything. They're building. I see new cities, agricultural domes, industrial complexes. This looks like a massive colonization effort. Lieutenant Shin looked confused. But Ambassador Kelthar said they were destroyers. Maybe we should ask them directly, Taehyung said. He opened a communication channel to the largest Korthak ship. Unknown vessels. This is Commander Yoon of the Earthship Silent Running. We come in peace and request dialogue. There was a moment of silence. Then a deep, gravelly voice responded. Earthship? We have not heard of your species. I am Chieftain Mokra of the Korthak Republic. Why do you travel with Velthani escorts? We're investigating reports of dangerous activities in this system, Taehyung said honestly. Chieftain Mokra laughed, a sound like grinding stone. Dangerous activities? Yes, we are engaged in the very dangerous activity of trying to build homes for our children. Ambassador Kelthar, Taehyung said over a private channel. The Korthak claim they're just colonists. Lies, Kelthar shouted. They always claim to be peaceful. That's how they trick their victims. But Dr. Han was shaking her head. Commander, I'm not detecting any deception in their communications, and my scans confirm what they're saying. This is definitely a civilian operation. Taehyung made a decision. Chieftain Mokra, would it be possible to speak with you face to face? We're trying to understand the situation in this region of space. You would be welcome aboard our ship, Mokra replied. But I warn you, your Velthani escorts will not approve. They have spent many years trying to convince the galaxy that we are monsters. Why would they do that? Lieutenant Shin asked. Because we refuse to pay their protection taxes, Mokra said simply. The Velthani Empire demands tribute from every species in this sector. Those who refuse are labeled as threats to galactic peace. Taehyung felt a cold feeling in his stomach. Ambassador Kelthar, is this true? The Korthak are master manipulators, Kelthar replied angrily. They will say anything to avoid responsibility for their crimes. What crimes exactly? Dr. Han asked. My sensors show no evidence of any destructive activity. You primitive fools don't understand what you're seeing, Kelthar snapped. Your crude instruments cannot detect the subtle signs of Korthak aggression. Engineer O was studying his readings more carefully. Actually, sir, our instruments are detecting something interesting. There are Velthani sensor boys throughout this system, and they've been here for months, watching everything the Korthak do. Of course we watch them, Kelthar said. We must monitor all potential threats. But Taehyung was starting to understand. Chieftain Mokra, how long have your people been trying to settle this system? 3 years, Mokra replied. We have requested permission from the system's previous inhabitants, paid all required fees, and followed every galactic law. But the Velthani continue to harass our ships and spread lies about our intentions. Dr. Han pulled up star charts on her display. Commander, this system is right on the border of Velthani space. If the Korthak established a successful colony here, it would serve as an example to other species that they don't need Velthani protection. That's ridiculous, Kelthar protested. The Velthani Empire exists only to maintain peace and order in the galaxy. Then why, Taehyung asked quietly, are you so afraid of a peaceful farming colony? The radio was silent for a long moment. When Kelthar spoke again, his voice was cold and threatening. Human vessel, you will return to your own system immediately. You are clearly too primitive to understand the complexities of galactic politics. We understand more than you think, Taehyung said. Dr. Han, how long would it take us to reach Earth? At our maximum speed? About 2 hours. And how long would it take the Velthani ship? At their maximum speed? At least 10 hours, Taehyung smiled. Chieftain Mokra, would you be interested in meeting with Earth's government? We might have some things to discuss. That would be most welcome, Mokra replied. We have heard rumors of a new species that has remained free from Velthani influence. Perhaps it is time we met. No! Kelthar shouted. I forbid this contact. You will return to Earth immediately. Actually, Taehyung said, I don't think you get to forbid anything anymore. As the silent running jumped to hyperspace with 3 Korthak ships following close behind, Engineer O turned to Dr. Han. So the galaxy's most dangerous threat is actually a bunch of farmers? Farmers who refuse to pay protection money, Dr. Han corrected. I'm starting to think the real threat to this galaxy wears purple robes and demands 30% of everything. Taehyung nodded grimly. Let's get home. President Choi is going to want to hear about this. Captain Nayan Shin guided her stealth ship through the asteroid field, following the coordinates that Chieftain Mokra had provided. Somewhere in this maze of floating rocks, they would find the second of the galaxy's supposed threats, the Destroyer. Cults. Are you sure about this intelligence? Asked Dr. Woojin Kang, Earth's new galactic affairs specialist. The Korthak could be wrong about these cult locations. The Korthak have been very accurate so far, Captain Shin replied. Their information about Velthani patrol routes was perfect, and they had no reason to lie about the cult hideouts. Engineer. Jinsuo looked up from his console. I'm detecting artificial structures ahead. Looks like a hidden base built into one of the larger asteroids. Any weapons? Asked Lieutenant Dong Hae Kim from the weapons station. Some defensive systems, Jinsu said, but nothing too threatening. Mostly old energy cannons and missile launchers. Doctor, Kang studied the readings. The technology looks familiar. These are modified Velthani weapons systems. Captain Shin opened a communication channel. Unknown base. This is Captain Shin of the Earth vessel Whisperwind. We request permission to speak with your leaders. The response came immediately. Earth vessel. You are either very brave or very foolish to come here. I am High Priestess Vara of the Liberation Front. Why do you seek us? We're investigating claims that your organization threatens galactic peace, Captain Shin said diplomatically. Vara laughed bitterly. Threatens peace? Is that what the Velthani are calling us now? Very well, Earth Captain. You may dock with our station, but come unarmed and bring only a small group. An hour later, Captain Shin and her team found themselves in a large chamber carved from solid rock. The walls were covered with star charts and what looked like battle plans. Dozens of aliens from different species worked at various stations throughout the room. High Priestess Vara was a tall, elegant being with silver skin and large, intelligent eyes. She wore simple robes that had seen better days, and her manner was direct, but not hostile. So, she said, studying the humans carefully. Another species has discovered our little rebellion. Tell me, Earth Captain, what has the Velthani Empire promised you? Protection? Prosperity? A place in their Grand Confederation? Something like that, Dr. Kang said. They mentioned that you worship machine gods and corrupt peaceful species. Vara's expression darkened. Machine gods? Is that the story they're telling now? She gestured to a large display on the wall. Come, let me show you what we actually worship. The display showed images of ruined planets and destroyed cities. These are worlds that refuse to pay Velthani tribute. The Empire claimed they were destroyed by mysterious threats, but we have evidence that Velthani forces were responsible. Captain Shin studied the images carefully. You have proof of this? Survivors, Vara said simply. Refugees who managed to escape before their worlds were cleansed. They came to us seeking justice. Lieutenant Kim looked around the chamber. All these different species? They're all refugees? Most of them, Vara confirmed. Some are defectors. From the Velthani military who could no longer stomach the Empire's crimes. Others are representatives from species that want to resist but lack the strength to do so alone. Dr. Kang pulled out his data pad. The Velthani told us you serve artificial intelligences left behind by a dead civilization. Vara walked over to another console and activated a holographic display. A blue-skinned alien appeared in the projection, wearing what looked like ancient armor. This is Commander Zalek of the Korthak Republic, Vara said. He's very much alive, as you can see. The machine gods we supposedly serve are actually quantum communication devices that allow us to coordinate resistance activities across the galaxy. The projection spoke. Greetings, Earth representatives. I hope you are not here to negotiate our surrender to the Velthani. Actually, Captain Shin said, we're trying to understand what's really happening in this galaxy. The Velthani want us to join their empire for protection. Protection, Commander Zalek repeated with disgust. They offer protection from threats they create themselves. It's the oldest con game in the universe. Vara nodded. The Velthani maintain power through fear and lies. They label any species that resists their rule as a galactic threat, then use those labels to justify military action. Engineer Jinsu raised his hand. What about the mind corruption? They said you turn peaceful species into fanatic warriors. We provide education, Vara said simply. We teach species the truth about Velthani, oppression. We help them understand that they don't have to live in fear. Some people call that corruption. We call it liberation. Dr. Kang was taking detailed notes. How many species are involved in your resistance movement? Officially? None, Vara said, with a sad smile. Resistance is illegal under Velthani law. Unofficially? Hundreds of worlds provide quiet support. Dozens actively participate in operations. What kind of operations? Lieutenant Kim asked. Vara looked at Captain Shin. That depends. Are you here as Velthani spies, or are you genuinely interested in the truth? We're interested in the truth, Captain Shin said. But we need proof, not just stories. Fair enough. Vara led them to another section of the base. Through a large window, they could see dozens of ships being repaired and refueled. These vessels belonged to refugee fleets from 7 different systems. All of them were destroyed by Velthani forces in the past 2 years. All of them? Dr. Kang asked. Everyone, Vara confirmed. The Empire claims they were destroyed by the Void Hunters, but the survivors tell a different story. She activated another display showing space battle footage. This is from the Keelan system, destroyed 6 months ago. Watch carefully. The video showed a peaceful planet surrounded by civilian ships. Suddenly, dark vessels appeared and began attacking. But, as Captain Shin watched, she noticed something strange. Those attacking ships, she said. They're using Velthani weapon signatures. Exactly, Vara said. The Empire has a secret fleet of unmarked vessels. They attack systems that refuse to pay tribute, then claim the damage was caused by mysterious threats. Engineer Jinsu was studying the technical data. These weapon patterns are definitely Velthani, but the ships themselves, they're designed to look like something else. They're designed to look like void hunter vessels, Vara explained. Most species have never actually seen a real void hunter, so they accept the Velthani version of events. Dr. Kang looked up from his notes. Have you ever encountered actual void hunters? Vara and Commander Zelik exchanged glances. That's complicated, Vara said. The void hunters do exist, but they're not what the Velthani claim they are. What do you mean? Captain Shin asked. They're not life-draining monsters, Commander Zelik said through the communication link. They're an ancient species that the Velthani have been systematically hunting to extinction. The life energy they supposedly steal is actually just the power sources from their dying ships. Lieutenant Kim frowned. Why would the Velthani hunt them? Because the Void Hunters know too much, Vara said quietly. They were one of the first species the Velthani conquered, thousands of years ago. They remember what the galaxy was like before the Empire existed. A galaxy without protection rackets, Commander Zelik added. Without tribute payments. Without fear-based control systems. Dr. Kang put down his datapad. So all three threats the Velthani warned us about are either completely innocent or victims of Velthani aggression, Vara finished. Yes. Captain Shin walked to the window and looked out at the refugee ships. Families from dozens of different species were living, in cramped conditions, far from their destroyed homes. What do you want from us? She asked. Nothing, Vara said. We're not asking Earth to join our resistance. We're not asking for ships or weapons or soldiers. We just want you to know the truth before you make your decision. And what decision is that? Whether to become another client species paying tribute to galactic bullies, Commander Zelik said, or to remain free and help others do the same. Engineer Jinsu was studying sensor readings from his portable scanner. Captain, I'm detecting something interesting. This asteroid base, it's powered by technology I've never seen before. Void Hunter power cores, Vara explained. The few survivors of their species share their technology with the Resistance. It's far more advanced than anything the Velthani use. More advanced than Velthani technology? Dr. Kang asked with interest. The Velthani are not as superior as they claim, Vara said. They maintain control through numbers and brutality, not technological advancement. A single Void Hunter ship could probably defeat an entire Velthani fleet. Captain Shin made her decision. High Priestess Vara, would you be willing to send a representative to Earth? Our government would like to hear your side of the story. I would be honored, Vara said, but I warn you, the Velthani will not approve of such contact. Let us worry about the Velthani, Captain Shin said with a smile. I think it's time they learned something about Earth. Admiral Sung-Ho Lim stood on the bridge of Earth's newest deep space vessel, the HSS Discovery, as they approached the coordinates provided by the Resistance. Finding the Void Hunters had taken 3 weeks of careful searching through the outer rim of the galaxy. Are you sure this is wise, Admiral? Asked Commander Yunji Nam, his second-in-command. If these Void Hunters are as dangerous as the Velthani claim, then we'll learn something useful, Admiral Lim replied. And if they're as innocent as the Resistance claims, we'll learn something even more useful. Dr. Sun-Hee Yu, Earth's leading expert on energy systems, looked up from her console. I'm detecting massive power signatures ahead. Whatever's out there, it's using energy technology unlike anything in our databases. Any signs of aggression? Asked Lieutenant Minsu Park from the weapons station. No weapons locks, Dr. Yu reported. In fact, I'm not detecting any weapon systems at all. Just enormous power cores and what looks like mining equipment? Through the main screen, they could see a fleet of dark, angular ships working around, a dead star. The vessels moved with graceful precision, using some kind of energy extraction technology to harvest power from the stellar remnant. "Those ships," Commander Nam said quietly. "They're beautiful. The Void Hunter vessels were unlike anything humans had seen before. They seemed to be grown rather than built, with organic curves that flowed seamlessly into crystalline structures. Each ship pulsed with soft light that matched the energy patterns they were extracting from the dead star. "Incoming transmission," reported Communications Officer Hyeji Lee. "It's unusual. Put it through." The voice that came through the speakers was like music mixed with mathematics. "Unknown vessels, you approach the Kethvar meditation fleet. We sense no hostile intent, but we are curious about your nature. You are not Velthani, yet you use technologies similar to theirs." Admiral Lim stepped forward. "This is Admiral Lim, of the Earth Defense Fleet. We come seeking knowledge and understanding. Are you the beings known as Void Hunters?" A sound like gentle laughter filled the bridge. "Void Hunters, such a crude name for our people. We are the Kethvar, the Energy Shepherds. We tend to the life force of dying stars, helping them transition peacefully to their next state of existence." Dr. Yu was studying her readings with amazement. "Admiral, they're not draining energy from that star. They're somehow helping it. I don't know how to describe it. They're turning its death into something beautiful." "May we speak with you in person?" Admiral Lim asked. "We've heard many disturbing stories about your people, and we'd like to understand the truth." "Truth is always welcome," the voice replied. "You may approach our meditation ship. We sense that your species has an unusual relationship with energy and matter. We are curious." An hour later, Admiral Lim and his team found themselves in the most extraordinary room they had ever seen. The walls seemed to be made of living crystal that pulsed with gentle light. Patterns of energy flowed through the air like visible music. The Kethvar who greeted them was tall and slender, with skin that seemed to contain starlight. Her movements were graceful and deliberate, and her large eyes held depths of ancient wisdom. "I am Speaker Veltar of the Kethvar," she said in her musical voice. "It has been many cycles since we encountered a species that approaches us with curiosity rather than fear. The Velthani Empire told us that your people drained the life energy from planets," Commander Nam said directly. Speaker Veltar's expression became sad. "The Velthani have never understood our nature. They see energy as something to be consumed and hoarded. We see it as something to be nurtured and guided." She gestured to a display that showed the dead star outside. "This star died in agony millions of years ago, its final moments filled with violence and destruction. We help such stars find peace in their transition, transforming their death energy into something that can nurture new life." Dr. Yu was fascinated. "How is that possible?" "Energy is neither created nor destroyed," Speaker Veltar explained. "It simply changes form. The violent death of a star can be transformed into the gentle birth of 1,000 worlds. This is our gift to the universe." Lieutenant Park looked confused. "But the Velthani said you attack planets, that you drain all life from inhabited worlds." "They speak of our desperate attempts to escape their hunters," Speaker Veltar said quietly. "When Velthani ships corner our vessels near inhabited systems, we sometimes have no choice but to draw emergency power from nearby sources. We always compensate the affected worlds afterward, but the Velthani use these incidents as propaganda. Admiral Lim was beginning to understand. How long have they been hunting your people? Nearly 3,000 of your years, Speaker Veltar replied. Once, the Kethvar numbered in the millions. Now perhaps 10,000 of us remain, scattered across the galaxy in small fleets like this one. Why do they hunt you? Commander, Nam asked. Speaker Veltar activated another display. It showed ancient star charts and what looked like historical records. Long ago, before the Velthani Empire existed, our people maintained a network of energy gardens throughout the galaxy. We helped nurture young civilizations, provided clean power to developing worlds, and guided the natural evolution of stellar systems. That sounds wonderful, Dr. Yu said. What happened? The Velthani happened, Speaker Veltar said with deep sadness. They were a young, aggressive species that saw our energy networks as a threat to their expansion. They began attacking our gardens, claiming we were hoarding resources that belong to all species. The display showed images of peaceful energy installations being destroyed by Velthani fleets. We tried to negotiate, Speaker Veltar continued. We offered to share our knowledge, to help them develop clean energy systems for their growing empire. But they were not interested in sharing. They wanted to control everything. So they declared war on your people? Admiral Lim asked. They declared us a threat to galactic stability, Speaker Veltar corrected. It was more effective than war. Instead of fighting us directly, they convinced other species that we were dangerous monsters. Soon, every civilization in the galaxy feared the Void Hunters who supposedly drained life from planets. Lieutenant Park was studying the historical data. This pattern, it's the same thing they're doing to the Korthak and the resistance movements. Exactly, Speaker Veltar said. The Velthani have perfected the art of controlling through fear. They create threats that don't exist, then offer protection from those imaginary dangers. Dr. Yu looked up from her scanner. Speaker Veltar, your energy technology, it's incredibly advanced, far beyond anything the Velthani use. The Kethvar have been working with energy for millions of years, Speaker Veltar explained. What you call advanced technology is simply our natural understanding of how the universe works. Could you teach other species these techniques? Admiral Lim asked carefully. Speaker Veltar's expression became hopeful for the first time. For 3,000 years we have waited for a species to ask that question. The Velthani convinced everyone that our knowledge was dangerous, that energy work should be left to their experts. What kind of knowledge? Commander Nam asked. Clean power that never runs out, Speaker Veltar said simply. Healing techniques that work on any form of life, transportation systems that don't damage space-time, communication networks that span the galaxy instantly. Dr. Yu's eyes widened. That's revolutionary. Why haven't the Velthani tried to steal this technology? Because it cannot be stolen, Speaker Veltar explained. Energy work requires understanding, patience, and respect for natural laws. The Velthani want to dominate and control. Such attitudes make true energy work impossible. Admiral Lim made a decision. Speaker Veltar, would you be willing to come to Earth? Our government is currently deciding whether to join the Velthani Empire, and I think they need to hear your story. I would be honored, Speaker Veltar said. But I must warn you, Admiral Lim, the Velthani will not allow such contact. They have spent too many years maintaining their lies to let the truth emerge now. Let us worry about the Velthani, Admiral, Lim said with a smile that was becoming common among Earth officials. I think it's time someone taught them about the real threats in this galaxy. As the Discovery prepared to return to Earth with their HFY passenger, Dr. Yu reviewed her sensor data. Admiral, do you realize what this means? If the HFY technology is real, we're talking about solving every energy crisis Earth has ever faced. And if the Velthani have been suppressing this knowledge for 3,000 years, Commander Nam added, then they're not just bullies. They're the ones holding back the entire galaxy's development. Admiral Lim nodded grimly. Which means our decision about their protection just became a lot more complicated. President Minji Choi sat at the head of the conference table, surrounded by representatives from 3 different galactic species. To her left sat Chieftain Mokra of the Korthak Republic, his massive frame making the human-sized chair look tiny. To her right, High Priestess Vara of the Liberation Front studied holographic displays with intense focus. And at the far end of the table, Speaker Veltar of the HFY sat in serene meditation, her crystalline skin glowing softly in the room's light. So, President Choi said, reviewing the files before her, Ambassador Kelthar should be arriving any moment for our final answer. Before he gets here, I want to make sure I understand the situation correctly. Dr. Woojin Kang, now serving as Earth's Director of Galactic Intelligence, stood up with his presentation ready. The evidence is overwhelming, Madam President. The Velthani Empire maintains control through a systematic program of fear, misinformation, and manufactured threats. He activated the main display. The Korthak Republic is a peaceful confederation of farming and trading worlds. Their only crime is refusing to pay tribute to the Velthani Empire. Chieftain Mokra nodded. We have offered to share our agricultural technology with any species that needs it. The Velthani labeled us as resource devourers because we refused to give them exclusive access to our food production methods. The Liberation Front, Dr. Kang continued, is a coalition of refugee populations and resistance fighters. Their mind corruption activities consist primarily of education and truth-telling. High Priestess Vara spoke up. We help species understand their legal rights under galactic law. We provide evidence of Velthani crimes. We offer sanctuary to those fleeing imperial oppression. If this is corruption, then we are proud to be corrupted. And the HFY, Dr. Kang said, turning to Speaker Veltar, are an ancient species of energy workers who have been hunted to near extinction by Velthani forces. Speaker Veltar's voice was like gentle music. We offered to share our knowledge freely with all species. The Velthani could not accept that such power might exist outside their control, so they chose to destroy rather than learn. President. Choi leaned back in her chair. General Jang, what's our assessment of Velthani military capabilities? General Kyungmin Jang stood up with his own report. Frankly, Madam President, they're not impressive. Their technology is at least 50 years behind our current systems. Their ships are large but inefficient. Their weapons are powerful but inaccurate. Their tactics are predictable. What about their fleet numbers? Admiral Kim asked. They claim 10,000 ships across their entire empire, General Jang replied. But our intelligence suggests that number includes cargo vessels, patrol boats, and administrative ships. Their actual combat fleet is probably closer to 3,000 vessels. Dr. So-Young Han looked up from her tactical analysis. 3,000 ships sounds like a lot, but they're spread across hundreds of star systems. The largest concentration we've detected is about 200 ships in any single location. President Choi nodded. And our capabilities? Admiral Kim smiled. We have 800 ships in our primary fleet, with another 400 in reserve. but our individual vessels are significantly more advanced than anything the Velthani possess. How significantly? President Choi asked. Our newest destroyer could probably defeat a Velthani battleship one-on-one, Admiral Kim said. Our flagship could take on 5 or 6 of their largest vessels simultaneously. Speaker Veltar spoke softly. President Choi, may I ask why your species developed such advanced military technology? Earth appears to be a peaceful world. President Choi smiled. We've had some practice defending ourselves. 2 world wars, a Cold War that lasted 40 years, and a few other conflicts taught us that the best way to ensure peace is to be prepared for war. Plus, added Dr. Lee from the Science Ministry, we've always been a bit paranoid about potential alien invasions. Turns out that paranoia was useful. The room's communication system chimed. Madam President, came the voice of her secretary, Ambassador Kelthar's shuttle is requesting permission to land. Send him to conference room A, President Choi said. The big one with all the windows. 20 minutes later, Ambassador Kelthar strode into the conference room with his usual arrogant confidence. He stopped short when he saw the 3 alien representatives seated at the table. What is the meaning of this? He demanded. President Choi, why are known criminals and terrorists present at our diplomatic meeting? Criminals? Chieftain Makra rumbled. I have never been convicted of any crime under galactic law. Terrorists? High Priestess Vara said coolly. We have never attacked civilian targets or engaged in unprovoked violence. Kelthar pointed at Speaker Veltar. And you, Void Hunter, how dare you show your face in a civilized meeting? Speaker Veltar remained perfectly calm. I am Kethvar, not a hunter of any kind, and I have committed no crimes against any civilization. President Choi gestured for Kelthar to sit down. Ambassador, we've spent the past week investigating your claims about galactic threats. We found some interesting information. Kelthar sat down stiffly. I hope you have not been influenced by the lies of these creatures. They are master manipulators who will say anything to avoid justice. Actually, Dr. Kang said, activating a holographic display, we found quite a bit of evidence. For instance, this footage from the Keelan system. The display showed the space battle that Vara had revealed earlier, with clear evidence of Velthani ships attacking civilian targets while disguised as Void Hunter vessels. Kelthar's face went pale. That footage is obviously fabricated. These terrorists are skilled at creating false evidence. We verified it through multiple sources, Dr. Kang said calmly, including 3 independent Velthani defectors who were present at the battle. Defectors are traitors who cannot be trusted, Kelthar protested. President Choi leaned forward. Ambassador Kelthar, we also discovered some interesting facts about your empire's protection services. It seems that the species who refuse your protection often suffer mysterious attacks shortly afterward. The galaxy is a dangerous place, Kelthar said desperately. We cannot protect those who refuse our help. But you can attack them with unmarked ships, High Priestess Vara said quietly, and then blame their destruction on the very people sitting at this table. Kelthar stood up angrily. I will not listen to these accusations. President Choi, you must choose now. Will you accept the protection of the Velthani Empire, or will you join these criminals in their futile resistance? President Choi stood up as well. We've made our choice, Ambassador. Excellent, Kelthar said with relief. When can we begin collecting tribute payments? I'm afraid you misunderstood, President Choi said with a smile. We choose to join the resistance. The room was silent for a moment. Kelthar stared at her in shock. That is impossible, he finally said. You are a primitive species. You cannot survive without Velthani protection. Actually, Admiral, Kim said, standing up and activating another display, we think we'll do just fine. The holographic display showed detailed scans of Velthani ships, including all their weaknesses and vulnerabilities. It also showed projections of Earth's military capabilities compared to Velthani forces. Kelthar studied the data with growing horror. This cannot be accurate. Your technology is centuries behind ours. I'm afraid not, Dr. Han said cheerfully. Our technology is actually about 50 years ahead of yours. We just hit it very well during your initial scans. General Zhang activated another display showing Earth's true fleet strength. We've been monitoring your ships since you arrived. Ambassador, your vessels are impressive, but they wouldn't last 5 minutes against our defense grid. Kelthar backed toward the door. This is impossible. You are making a terrible mistake. The Velthani Empire will not tolerate this rebellion. That's unfortunate, President Choi said, because Earth is officially recognizing the independence of the Korthak Republic, the legitimacy of the Liberation Front, and the rights of the Kethvar people to exist without persecution. You cannot do this, Kelthar shouted. We just did, President Choi said simply. And Ambassador, your ships are now surrounded by our fleet. I suggest you contact your superiors and suggest they reconsider their approach to galactic diplomacy. Alarms began sounding from Kelthar's personal communicator. Speaker Veltar spoke softly. The universe has been waiting a long time for a species like yours, President Choi. Perhaps the age of fear is finally ending. Kelthar's hands shook as he read the emergency messages flooding his device. Impossible, he whispered. No one challenges the Velthani Empire. No one. Well, President Choi said with satisfaction, I guess there's a first time for everything. Ambassador Kelthar burst onto the bridge of his flagship, the Righteous Fury, his purple face darker than usual with rage and panic. Commander Thex, contact the nearest Imperial fleet immediately. We need reinforcements. Commander Thex, a shorter Velthani with nervous eyes, looked up from his console with confusion. Sir, our communications are not responding. All external channels appear to be blocked. Blocked? Kelthar screamed. That's impossible. These primitives don't have the technology to jam Imperial communications. Actually, came a calm voice from the main speakers. We have exactly that technology. Every Velthani on the bridge spun around in shock. The voice belonged to Admiral Seung-ho Lim of Earth's fleet. Human, Kelthar snarled. This is an act of war against the Velthani Empire. No, Admiral Lim replied pleasantly. This is pest control. Commander Thex, I recommend you look at your long-range sensors. Commander Thex's hands shook as he activated the sensor array. What he saw made him sink into his chair with despair. Sir, we are completely surrounded. The main view screen activated, showing space around the 3 Velthani ships. Dozens of sleek, angular vessels had appeared as if from nowhere, their hulls gleaming with advanced armor and weapon systems that made Velthani technology look primitive by comparison. Where did they come from? Kelthar demanded. Our sensors detected nothing. Stealth technology, came another voice, this one belonging to Captain Yunji Nam. We've been watching you for days, learning your patrol patterns and defensive systems. Very predictable, by the way. Kelthar studied the Earthships with growing fear. They were smaller than Velthani vessels, but something about their design suggested deadly efficiency. every line and curve spoke of advanced engineering and combat experience. "You cannot threaten the Velthani Empire," Kelthar said, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. "We have 10,000 ships across the galaxy," had Admiral Lim corrected. Past tense. "Captain Nam, would you mind updating the ambassador on recent developments?" Captain Nam's ship moved closer to the Velthani flagship. "In the past 6 hours, Ambassador, your empire has lost contact with fleets in 7 star systems. Coincidentally, those are the same systems where you've been conducting false flag operations against innocent species." "False flag operations?" Commander Thex whispered. "Sir, what are they talking about?" Kelthar shot his subordinate a warning look, but Captain Nam continued. "Oh, Commander Thex doesn't know about the secret attacks? The unmarked ships that destroy civilian targets and blame it on the Korthak or the Kethvar?" "Lies!" Kelthar shouted. But his crew was now staring at him with suspicion and growing understanding. Admiral Lim's voice returned. "We have detailed records, Ambassador. Ship movements, communication intercepts, survivor testimony. Your entire protection racket is about to be exposed to every species in the galaxy." "Sir," a young Velthani officer spoke up from the communications station, "I'm receiving reports from other ships in our fleet. They say they're seeing impossible things." "What kind of impossible things?" Commander Thex asked. "Earth ships that can appear and disappear at will. Weapons that can disable our shields without damaging our hulls. Sensor jamming so complete that our targeting systems can't lock on to anything." Kelthar slammed his fist on the command console. "Fight them! All ships, open fire!" "Sir, the weapons," officer said nervously. "Our targeting computers cannot achieve weapon lock. The Earth ships keep shifting. They're there, but not there, if that makes sense. On the main screen, the Earth vessels seem to flicker in and out of normal space, making them impossible to target accurately. Velthani weapons fired wildly, into empty space, while the human ships moved with fluid grace between the energy beams. "Admiral Lim," came another voice over the speakers. "This one belonged to Dr. Sun Hee Yu. Perhaps we should demonstrate our capabilities more clearly." Suddenly, every system on the Velthani flagship went dead. Lights, engines, weapons, life support. Everything shut down simultaneously. In the darkness and silence, Kelthar could hear his crew panicking. Then, just as suddenly, everything came back online. "How?" Kelthar whispered. "Quantum interference patterns," Dr. Yu explained helpfully. "We temporarily disrupted the electromagnetic fields that power your ship's systems. Don't worry, no permanent damage. We're not barbarians." Commander Thex was studying his damage reports with amazement. "Sir, they shut down our entire ship and restarted it without causing any harm to the crew or equipment. That level of precision is impossible," Kelthar finished weakly. "No," Admiral Lim said. "Just advanced. Ambassador, you've spent so long bullying primitive species that you forgot what real technology looks like." "Our weapons," the weapons officer reported. "They're not responding properly. The targeting systems keep showing conflicting data." Captain Nam's voice crackled through the speakers. "That's because we're feeding false information directly into your computer networks. Your weapons think our ships are in completely different locations than where they actually are." "You've hacked our systems?" Commander Thex asked in awe. "Child's play," Dr. Yu replied. "Your cybersecurity is about 30 years behind current standards. We could probably take control of your entire ship if we wanted to." "Please don't," Commander Thex said quickly. On the view screen, more ships were appearing, but these weren't Earth vessels. Kelthar recognized the distinctive designs of Korthak Republic ships, Liberation Front fighters, and even the elegant organic curves of Kethvar energy vessels. Impossible, Kelthar breathed. They cannot work together. The species hate each other. Actually, came Chieftain Mokra's deep voice, we get along quite well when we're not being lied to about each other. High Priestess Vara's voice joined the conversation. It's amazing how quickly species can become friends when they discover they're all victims of the same oppressor. And we Kethvar, added Speaker Veltar's musical tones, are delighted to finally share our knowledge with species that appreciate learning over conquering. Kelthar watched in horror as his 3 ships were completely surrounded by vessels from 4 different species, all working in perfect coordination. This cannot be happening. The Velthani Empire has ruled for 10,000 years. 10,000 years of lies, Admiral Lim said firmly. 10,000 years of fear-based control. 10,000 years of making the galaxy a worse place for everyone except you. Sir, the communications officer called out, I'm receiving a transmission from the Imperial capital. Put it through, Kelthar said desperately. The transmission was full of static and interference, but the message was clear. All Imperial fleets, under attack, unknown vessels, requesting immediate, situation critical. The transmission cut off in a burst of static. It appears, Captain Nam said pleasantly, that your empire is having a very bad day. Fleets across 7 systems have been neutralized. Your secret bases have been exposed, and evidence of your crimes is being broadcast on every communication channel in the galaxy. Commander Thex looked at his sensors again. Sir, I'm detecting massive energy signatures throughout this system. Whatever technology these species are using, it's unlike anything in our databases. That's because, Speaker Veltar explained, it's Kethvar energy work, enhanced by human engineering and powered by Korthak industrial systems. The combined knowledge of 4 free species, working together. Kelthar sank into his command chair, finally understanding the magnitude of what was happening. You're destroying the Velthani Empire. No, Admiral Lim corrected. We're freeing the galaxy from the Velthani Empire. There's a difference, sir, the weapons officer said quietly. We're receiving surrender requests from both of our escort ships. Kelthar looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. For the first time in their lives, they were seeing their mighty empire defeated by species they had been taught to consider inferior. Commander Thex, Kelthar said finally, signal surrender. Sir? Signal surrender, Kelthar repeated. And prepare to discuss terms. Wise choice, Admiral Lim said. Don't worry, Ambassador. Unlike your empire, we actually believe in fair treatment for prisoners. As the surrender signals went out, Kelthar realized that the galaxy would never be the same. For 10,000 years, the Velthani had been the ultimate authority. Now, in the space of a single day, they had become refugees themselves. And it had all started because they offered protection to a species that laughed and asked, from what? 6 months after the fall of the Velthani Empire, President Minji Choi stood on the observation deck of the new Terran Galactic Alliance headquarters, watching ships from dozens of different species arrive for the first free trade conference in galactic history. Hard to believe how much has changed, said Dr. Sun Hee-yu, her chief scientific advisor, as she joined the president at the window. Is it? President Choi asked with a smile. I always suspected that bullies were just cowards with better weapons. Once someone stands up to them, they usually fold pretty quickly. Through the transparent aluminum windows, they could see Korthak agricultural ships unloading seeds and farming equipment for worlds that had been strip-mined by Velthani tribute. Collectors. Liberation Front vessels carried former political prisoners back to their home systems, and graceful Kethvar ships moved between the fleets, sharing clean energy technology with any species that wanted to learn. The energy sharing program is exceeding all expectations, Dr. Yu reported. 17 species have already implemented basic Kethvar power systems. Food production across the galaxy has increased by 40% since the Korthak started sharing their agricultural methods. And the Velthani? President Choi asked. Still in shock, mostly, Dr. Yu said. But Ambassador Kelthar has been surprisingly helpful in transitioning their administrative systems to the new alliance structure. As if summoned by their conversation, Ambassador Kelthar approached them down the corridor. He looked very different from the arrogant official who had first demanded Earth's submission. His elaborate robes had been replaced by simple civilian clothing, and his manner was quiet and respectful. President Choi, he said with a formal bow, the former Imperial Senate has completed its review of reparation payments to the Kethvar survivors. The full amount has been approved. That's good news, President Choi said. How are your people adjusting to the new reality? Kelthar sighed. It is difficult. For 10,000 years we believed we were the galaxy's protectors. Learning that we were actually its oppressors has been humbling. But necessary? Added High Priestess Vara as she joined the group. Truth is always painful at first, but it leads to healing. Vara had also changed in the past 6 months. The tired, battle-worn resistance leader had been replaced by a confident administrator who now oversaw refugee resettlement programs throughout the galaxy. The integration programs are going well, Vara reported. Most former Velthani client species have chosen to join the alliance. A few want to remain independent, which we're supporting fully. As it should be, said Speaker Veltar, appearing with her usual silent grace. Freedom means the right to choose your own path, not just the right to choose different masters. The Kethvar representative had become the Alliance's Director of Energy Development, helping species across the galaxy adopt clean, sustainable power systems. Her people were finally able to share their knowledge openly, after 3,000 years of hiding from Velthani hunters. Speaking of choices, President Choi said, how are the former Velthani military forces adapting to their new role? Admiral Donghyun Kim, who had been quietly observing the conversation, stepped forward. Better than expected, actually. Most of them are genuinely relieved to stop being enforcers for a corrupt system. Admiral Thex has been particularly helpful in redesigning their ships for peaceful purposes. Admiral Thex? Kelthar asked with surprise. He was promoted? We judge people by their actions, not their previous allegiances, Admiral Kim explained. Thex chose to help liberate his own people from Imperial propaganda. That took courage. Through the windows, they could see a ceremony taking place on the main docking platform. Chieftain Mokra was presenting agricultural awards to representatives from 12 different species who had achieved food security for the first time in decades. The Korthak seemed to be enjoying their new role as teachers rather than outcasts, Dr. Yu observed. Teaching is better than fighting, rumbled a familiar voice. Chieftain Mokra had arrived, still wearing dirt-stained work clothes from the agricultural demonstration below. My people have not fired a weapon in anger for 6 months. This is the longest peace we have known in generations. And it shows, President Choi said warmly. The crop yields you've helped other species achieve are remarkable. Mokra's massive shoulders relaxed. Food should not be a weapon of control. Every species deserves to feed their children without fear. Commander Tae-Hyung Yoon approached the group, carrying a datapad filled with reports. President, the latest intelligence summaries are ready for your review. Any problems? President Choi asked. Actually, the opposite, Commander Yoon said, with a grin. Piracy is down 80% across the galaxy. Refugee movements are at an all-time low because people aren't fleeing their homeworlds anymore. And we've had 17 new applications for Alliance membership just this week. 17? Vara asked with surprise. That's more than we had in the first 3 months. Word is spreading, Commander Yoon explained. Species are learning that they don't have to choose between independence and security. They can have both. Dr. Yu pulled up a holographic display showing galactic trade routes. Economic activity has increased by over 300%. When species aren't spending 30% of their resources on protection payments, they have a lot more to trade with each other. It's almost like cooperation works better than extortion, President Choi said dryly. Ambassador Kelthar looked at the trade data with amazement. In all our imperial records, we never achieved economic growth like this. Because you were taking wealth, not creating it, Speaker Veltar explained gently. True prosperity comes from mutual benefit, not one-sided extraction. Admiral Kim received a communication through his earpiece. President, I'm getting reports from our deep space monitoring stations. Captain Yoonji Nam's patrol fleet has made contact with another species beyond the former imperial borders. Friendly contact? President Choi asked. Very friendly, Admiral, Kim said with a smile. Apparently they've been hiding from the Velthani Empire for centuries. When they learned the Empire had fallen, they sent ambassadors to thank us personally. How many species do we think have been hiding out there? Commander Yoon asked. Unknown, Admiral Kim replied. But our scouts are finding evidence of hidden colonies throughout the Outer Rim. The Velthani Empire might have controlled thousands of systems, but they never even knew about thousands more. Kelthar shook his head in disbelief. We thought we knew the entire galaxy. How could we have been so wrong about so much? Because you only saw what you wanted to see, Vera said with surprising kindness. When you start with the assumption that everyone needs your protection, you stop looking for evidence that they might be capable of protecting themselves. Or protecting others, added Mokra. The galaxy is full of strong species who were never allowed to show their strength. President Choi turned back to the window, where ships from 30 different species were working together to unload supplies for worlds still recovering from imperial exploitation. You know what I find most interesting about all this? What's that? Dr. Yu asked. We never actually had to destroy the Velthani Empire, President Choi said thoughtfully. We just had to show everyone that they weren't as powerful as they claimed. Once people stopped being afraid, the empire collapsed on its own. Fear is a fragile foundation for any government, Speaker Veltar observed. It only works as long as people believe the threats are real. Ambassador Kelthar was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke slowly, as if the words were difficult to say. President Choi, may I ask you something? Of course. When we first arrived at Earth, your people could have simply accepted our offer. You could have paid the tribute and lived comfortably under imperial protection. Why did you choose to resist? President Choi considered the question carefully. Because we asked ourselves a simple question. If we're so primitive and helpless, why do you need 30% of our resources? And if we're not primitive and helpless, Why do we need your protection? It was the wrong question to ask us, Admiral Kim added with a grin. Humans don't like being told what we can't do. Or what we should be afraid of, added Commander Yoon. Plus, Dr. Yu said, we have a long history of bad experiences with people who promise to protect us in exchange for absolute obedience. Kelthar nodded slowly. I understand now. Your species was dangerous to us because you thought for yourselves. Not dangerous, President Choi corrected. Free. And freedom, as it turns out, is contagious. As they watched, a small ceremony began on the docking platform below. Representatives from the newest alliance members were signing their joining agreements, while children from a dozen different species played together nearby. 6 months ago, Vara said quietly, those children would have been taught to fear each other. Now they're learning each other's games. This is what the galaxy was meant to be, Speaker Veltar said with deep satisfaction. Not a prison ruled by fear, but a community bound by choice. A new voice joined the conversation as Captain Yoonji Nam approached from the communications center. President, we're receiving a transmission from the Outer Rim. It's from a species called the Zentari.